We made it. Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us right after the lunch break. I hope you are open for new thoughts and inspirations. On behalf of IB Europe, it's really my big pleasure to give you a warm welcome to our little session here. For the people who don't know IB Europe, we are the leading industry organization in digital marketing and advertising in Europe, relying on the national organizations across Europe. My name is Jörg Vogelsang, and I'm working as co-chair for the IB Europe Advertising Media Committee. And in a couple of working groups, we make sure that we give the digital marketing and advertising system a strong foundation, standards and things like that, so that we can transact and do advertising, and that we balance all interest. And as one of these kind of tasks we are fulfilling as an organization, we are also helping to basically educate the market. And one of the big trends in the past is definitely agentic advertising. So in the following discussion, we are bringing together programmatic advertising and agentic advertising, and what agentic advertising can already do in our industry. And of course, I brought with me a couple of really strong experts to give some light on this kind of topic. So we have Sebastian Kranz from Google, we have Jessica Jöris from WPP Media, and Emma Newman from Programmatic. Please give my experts a big round of applause. Perfect. And if I can see my questions here, we can start. So first, I would like you to give a quick introduction about yourself, and then also perhaps share what really fascinates you on AI in general. And I think we start with you, Jessica, if this is okay.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Jessica. Nice to meet all of you today. I'm part of WPP Media, where I'm responsible for the product development department, which means that we take care of all digital products, of data technology and at quality together with other colleagues. And of course, AI and agents are of highest importance in our everyday life. And I think I'm really fascinated how time-saving it can be and what it can do, what we cannot do with human knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, yes, I'm Emma Newman. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Programmatic, and also the reason that this is in English, so I apologise. I will try and speak slowly and not wave my arms around too much. I'm really fascinated about how the utilization of AI can be used to augment what the humans do, as opposed to replacing what the humans do. And I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the market at the moment, and just generally in life around, the machines are coming and we're not going to have jobs. And I actually think if we embrace it in the right way, it will free up the human intelligence, if you like, to do what we do best, which is strategic thinking and relationship building.
Yeah, makes totally sense. Thank you. Sebastian.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sebastian Kranz. I'm part of Google's team that manages actually the relationship with associations like IB Europe, and I lead our work on AI and privacy around the world and for industry relations. And AI, I think, is just amazing and fascinating to see, like the power of this technology. I think it's called the most profound change of our lifetime for a reason. So that's why I'm super excited about the power of the technology, what it can do, and as Emma said, how it can really augment, help, gain more efficiency and transform our work and do amazing things going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you already brought a couple of things which give a segue to the next to the first question. You mentioned the power of optimization and gaining efficiency and so forth. And that is, of course, very important when we think about programmatic advertising. Programmatic advertising had always been about efficiency and giving, also optimizing for better KPIs and things like that. But before we explore the complexities of programmatic optimization, I would like to ground the conversation in some tangible examples. We often talk about agentic advertising as a future concept. but I think many of you and your companies are already deploying systems that basically already do things and act on behalf of brands, because that is basically our task, to make this technology accessible and meaningful for brands to solve basically real problems. So first question would be, to start us off, could each of you perhaps share a concrete example how your company is basically using an agentic system and how this kind of capability helps brands already or other players in the programmatic ecosystem? Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Yes, please.
So I think you made a valid point, which was people talk about agentic trading being the future, and I would argue that it's actually the present.
Yeah.
And it's a present that has accelerated extremely quickly over the last, certainly for Programmatic, over the last 5 months or so. And so it's gone from being a theory to being a reality. And a couple of examples that I can share is, well, the first one is we are running agentic to agentic campaigns. So where the agent is talking, so the brand or the buyer agent is talking directly to our agent, either through a large language model, so an LLM of choice, so Claude or ChatGPT, or even they build their own. And they're using it either in one of two ways. We've got 3 campaigns running at the moment. We've run about 250 agentic-enabled campaigns in Q4 last year. And that's accelerating. And you can either be the buyer where you log on to your LLM and you have a conversation in real-time language, and it talks directly to our platform and our agent, and you can set up and run a campaign in that way. Or you can enable your agent to talk to our agent. And so we've got 3 running at the moment, one with an independent agency out of North America, one with the largest independent agency in the Netherlands, and we've gone live with our first Holdco campaign in France just yesterday. And we have a couple of other Holdco campaigns lined up in Europe that will go live before the end of the quarter. And that's really interesting for us because we thought it would be and it has been the independent agencies who have probably lent in because they're able to do things much more quickly. And we thought it might take a while for the Holdcos, for the complexities that they have to deal with, to actually lean in and start to trade in this way. But we've started to see that they're leaning in as well. So that's how we're turning it from theory to reality.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, but the buying takes place within like the Programmatic ecosystem,
Yes.
or so it's not like the agencies using like an external DSP to communicate.
No, it's through Programmatic's Agentic OS, through our buying platform directly into our supply.
Interesting. Well, you obviously.
I can go next. So I mean, I guess that's no surprise when I say that we as a company are super excited about the power of AI and what it can do. And AI is kind of a fundamental part, or has become a fundamental part of all our advertising products. And we've seen great progress, and the pace of innovation is kind of incredible. So I've been with Google for over 12 years, and I haven't seen like the pace like this before. So it's really kind of mind-blowing. And we have already kind of really interesting agentic examples. For instance, earlier this year, we announced agentic commerce capabilities specific to Google Search, where the first campaigns execute and buy on your behalf, where an agent on Google Search then buys from a store that is enabled also through agentic capabilities. When it comes to programmatic, there are also already some features, but I would say that call them like platform native. So in a way, so you still have to log into the product to use these agentic capabilities. Could be that the agent then builds reports for you, or that you can upload a natural language brief into the platform, and then the tool analyzes the brief and gives you targeting recommendations, what is the best audience for this brief, and then with one easy click, you can set up the campaign or the targetings. So there are already some interesting examples, and I think it will be like the foundation going forward as we build this out. So you can expect more and more agentic capabilities in the next couple of weeks or months coming.
Super exciting.
Of course, as WPP, we of course have a lot of situations where we already use agentic AI. So What we especially take care of is everyday life as a company. So there are a lot of different agents that help several colleagues from any kind of department we have in their everyday life. But when it comes to programmatic, we as an agency, we work together with a lot of different vendors and partners. So for example, together with Programmatic, together with Google and other technologies. So what our agents do is that we try to process all the data that the different tech vendors give to us. So because some of them are, to be honest, they all kind of speak another language. They all have their internal language. They all have their own data they provide to us, and we need agents to really analyze these data sets to really have a common sense of data that can be processed and used to optimize campaigns. So we mainly in the programmatic world focus on having a kind of one platform. I always like to say 10 years ago we were talking about we need a meta DSP, so we don't need a meta DSP, I think. We need an agent who's able to process all this.
And that is what you already built to some extent?
Yes, we already do. We already had first tests. One example might be audience verification. So we have an agent which is able to identify and analyze all the log-level data from the different environments and to optimize towards one KPI, which could be audience verification.
Interesting. Okay, so we are already seeing, and I totally agree with your point, obviously, looking into these kind of examples, it's not the future we are talking about, but we're close to reality right now in terms of having agents orchestrating a couple of things. Okay, let's dive deeper into that. I mean, agentic advertising obviously has the power to be the next evolution or perhaps even revolution for the programmatic ecosystem. I think there's still one big barrier we saw, or I at least saw from my perspective, that we have strategy, we have perfectly planned product strategy and marketing strategy, but then when it comes down to execution, there's sometimes it feels like a bit of a gap. It's getting clunky. I mean, programmatic, although I love programmatic, is obviously difficult to orchestrate. Is agentic advertising really closing this gap right now? Do we build the bridge between strategy and execution with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's this whole debate, and we've been having this debate for a while about, is this an evolution? Is this a revolution? I think when you think about programmatic, we've been using machine learning for the last 20 years. Yeah. So from a technology perspective, and I think if you're within the industry, it feels like it's an evolution.
Yep.
I think for sometimes our customers, it feels more like a revolution. So how do we help them get comfortable with this? As I mentioned earlier on, one of the ways that we think about it is how do we support our customers to achieve their outcomes, whatever those outcomes may be? How do we build a platform that enables them to take their strategy and translate that in such a way that they are delivering against that strategy? And the challenge you have, of course, is that every customer, every buyer, every brand is going to have a slightly different strategy with a slightly different outcome. And there's been this whole debate about, is programmatic top of the funnel, is programmatic bottom of the funnel? I think that what AI is enabling us to do is actually make programmatic through the funnel. Mm-hmm. Because even today, I'll get a branding brief, but it will still have an outcome, which back in the day, when I first started 20 odd years ago, that would have been considered a performance brief. Whereas I think that line through the funnel, or the funnel is compressing a little bit. So even a branding campaign now has some kind of outcome that they want to measure against, whatever that may be. And so is that a branding campaign or is that a performance campaign? Is that strategic? Is it execution? So I think what AI is enabling the programmatic ecosystem to do is to sort of bring those two sides, if you like, closer together. So it's not necessarily one or the other. Mm. And if it's used smartly, then it frees up, your human intelligence, as I referenced earlier, to think much more strategically, to optimize. Well, in fact, the AI is going to optimize. So you're really moving from automatic to autonomy. And I think that's a slight difference. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say, look, if we, like 10 or 15 years ago, when we were at the conference, everyone was also kind of concerned about like the programmatic revolution, and people were concerned, oh, do I still have jobs when now the machines start the buying? And look at us now, how much time we spend on troubleshooting, campaign optimization, etc. So I think the hope is that once we are at a place where really agents communicate with each other, that these like tasks get automated, and we will have more efficiency, less concerns with troubleshooting, better deal execution, and so on. But I think it's also important to say, I think we're still at early stage. We have amazing examples already what agents can do and what agentic AI can do. But if you put it in perspective, so first, like we had like predictive AI, like kind of predicting what might work, then Gen AI, so creating new assets, and now what we call like the third wave of AI is agentic AI. And I think it's not unsurprising that we are at an early stage, and we need time to for things to develop. So because it's like until this is a reality where agents really communicate properly with each other, and that it's all like flowing without any concerns or any challenges, I think we will still need some time. But the hope is certainly that this will make our work more efficient, more streamlined, and less error-prone.
But how much autonomy can we really give these kind of agents right now? And where do we see boundaries?
I would say a lot. So when it comes back to the question you had before, I would totally agree with you, because especially when we're talking about programmatic, you have a campaign and there might be thousands, maybe even millions of information and data points that can be processed, that can be analyzed. But there's no human person in the world who can do this. So we need an agent. We need agentic AI to analyze these programmatic data sets. And the gap will be closed whenever you do this and put back the results you have for measurement to the beginning in the planning stage. So this is what we basically do. We run a campaign, we analyze, but in the first step, we have a kind of idea what the campaign should look like, an ideation, I would say. The campaign runs, we do the measurement, and then we just adjust the planning again. Because now, with the help of agentic AI, we know what really works out for the client in the moment. And the more kind of free, or what did you just say, the last question? Sorry, what was the word?
How much autonomy you really can give?
The more autonomy you give to an agent, the more can be found out. So in my opinion, there might be patterns that cannot be seen by us, for example. So I think you have to give a lot of autonomy.
And I think it depends, right? So we've built our platform in a number of ways. So you can give it as much autonomy as you want. Or we are, as the buyer will determine where they want their boundaries to be. So you could say, right, well, I want to automate up until this stage, and then I want a human sign-off, and then I want to do this, and I'll have another human sign-off. So it really depends upon how comfortable the buyers are in terms of how much they want to have hands-off autonomy, or how much they want to still be involved. I think as the agents become more efficient and more effective and they learn more, that's the whole point, perhaps there'll be more trust involved. And so people will be happy to be slightly more hands-off and be more autonomous. We're already seeing fantastic results. I mean, the campaigns that we've been running agentically have an 87% faster campaign setup time, which that's a phenomenal result, really. You're troubleshooting in real time, and it's identifying and solving troubleshooting problems 70% faster than if a human was involved. This has to be good for the industry. It means that we are more efficient, we're more effective. It's good for brands because their campaigns are flighting quicker, and they're more efficient and they're more effective. It's better for the publisher because we can direct spend in the most efficient and effective way, because the machine is learning all of the time, and it's not waiting for a human to go, actually, well, that didn't deliver, and that CPM is too high, and there's a problem over there because for some reason we're not responding to this bid request, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just makes the entire flow more efficient and more effective. Doesn't remove the humans, but it's got to be better for the industry, because the brands get more return on their ad spend and the publisher gets more work in media.
So the human is enabled, empowered to basically orchestrate more volume, more campaigns at the same time.
Yeah.
but the human is still in the loop to oversee what's happening and giving the final kind of go for a certain.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be very surprised if any campaign that we run in the short term doesn't have some degree of human oversight at the end of even if it's just to go, that looks great, let's press the button.
Yeah, I think you also need have this guardrails in place. So when think of when you say to an agent, buy me this pair of sneakers or pair of shoes, you want to say I don't want to spend 250 euros, but I want to pay maybe 150 euros. So and then you tell the agent, buy me this pair of shoes when the price drops to 150 euros, and then the agent takes action. In the same way, it should happen also in programmatic, so that you set kind of the boundaries, the guardrails, but then within those defined guardrails, the agent should have the autonomy to act.
Yeah. Let me add one question here from the audience because it I think just fits this. How do you think will the role of a programmatic trader look like once agents have taken over the busy work? How will humans be able to challenge AI outputs?
I think a programmatic trader is going to have more time to interrogate the brief. Because I've never done programmatic trading, but I've obviously know people that do, and these are very busy people, and it can often feel for them like they're just on this treadmill and they're just executing. And I think that this is going to enable a programmatic trader to maybe take a little bit more time to really interrogate the brief, to talk to the to either talk to the brand's client, to the client owner or the brand directly or whomever it may be, to then help sort of set up the brief or set up the campaign in a slightly different way, which will then train the agent, which will then drive efficiency and effectiveness, which will then deliver greater return for their customer, whether that's the brand or somebody in an agency. So I think it's going to really enable traders to become, I think it's going to make their job more interesting. A great example that we use at work, we have a team of lawyers, and our general counsel has a sense of humour, let's put it that way. And and obviously, we have these tools that enables us to review contracts really quickly, and you can redline, and if it hits a certain threshold, we'll accept the contract, and if it doesn't, we go back and review it by a human. And you can see the lawyers were getting slightly anxious about this, but he was really valid. He went, did you walk out of law school with $500,000 worth of debt because you wanted to sit there and redline a contract all day? No, you did not. You want to do more interesting things. So I encourage people to think about it like that. Don't think about it as replacing your job. It's going to enable you to make your job more interesting.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, because this is something that we also see at WPP already. People have more time to do, for example, testings, A and B testings, getting into depth when it comes to new technologies, new targeting strategies, whatever, because talking again about how much should the agentic AI do. AI can find blind spots we didn't know, and the client didn't know as well. So we can do a lot more, we can learn a lot more, we can do a lot more of interesting work. And one point that might be important as well is that we know that especially when it comes to programmatic, we have to face problems and challenges like invalid traffic, attention scores, whatever, and quality sometimes is a topic that is not forced as much as it should be. So I think that traders might find time for more important topics in the future if the bad work, I would say, or the things that really need some time, like setting up campaigns and so on and adjusting any kind of CPM, they just saved it and can do more interesting things.
Sounds like an amazing, not future, but reality right now.
The future's bright.
Yes. But hey, we're only halfway through, so we have more time to paint a picture. One thing which always comes up as a kind of new thing or new acronym, NLB, Natural Language Brief. How close are we really to this? So can we really take natural language as a briefing and then agents create a meaningful campaign out of this?
Yeah, we're doing it already.
And that's what I said at the beginning.
Simple answer. Yes.
This is what I said at the beginning. This feature's already live in at least on DB360. This is called, I think, audience persona. So you load up the brief, and then the tool gives you a targeting recommendation. Probably there exist other tools in Programmatic or other DSPs. So I think Yeah, these kind of things are already like a reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we're not doing it since yesterday only. I think
we've been doing this a while.
we do this a while, and maybe at the beginning it might have been difficult. I think all of you might have used ChatGPT once, and the answers in day one have not been as good as they are today. So the system's just learned.
Yeah.
But they have to be fueled to learn.
Yeah. So if we have the agents then being able to create a briefing, oversee basically how campaigns are running and so forth, how much, it sounds like this could solve basically also a certain challenge we see in programmatic, that we have such a fragmented kind of media space. Is that already working? Do you see some boundaries in that? What's your take on this? So, I mean, what I mean with that is that this already works not only in a closed kind of silo or a certain part of inventory, but really as something which can work as a combining kind of layer across all the programmatic channels.
I think the way that we think about it is, because somebody asked me the other day, is like, well, are you the agent? Are you the environment? What is it you're like? Are you an SSP? Are you a DSP? Those lines are definitely blurring. And again, I want to make sure that everyone's clear. It's not SSP versus DSP. That's not the situation that we find ourselves in, and I don't think that's the situation that we'll find ourselves in moving forward. But I think about how are we helping to build the environment to enable this kind of trading, and that's where we're really focusing. So, and this is where things like ad CP is really important. We need to be speaking the same kind of language. Otherwise, you've got me speaking English and you're speaking German, and we don't understand each other. That sort of
Germish.
Yeah, exactly. Or, what did you say? Germish.
Germish.
Excellent. I don't even know what that is, but excellent.
You found out already.
Yeah, but it's so that we need to make sure that we're all talking the same language. Otherwise, it defeats the object, and what we'll end up doing is just building another load of walled gardens, which is, for us, is not what we want to do. This is about making sure that the open internet is accessible to as many people as possible, and so we're trying to build the environment that will do that.
Yeah, and this is exactly the point. I think we're talking about, will it be the next fragmentation layer? So basically, the requirement to do this in a proper way is to not behave like walled gardens, to give as much transparency as you can give, to have a kind of common sense of what data really looks like. It starts with an Excel file in the reporting. Do you have the same columns? Do you have the same numbers and the same dots and so on? And the more transparency you give, the more you can do out of it. And so I think when you're not talking about walled gardens, it absolutely makes sense, and it's a good beginning.
I think if you want it to scale, you really, at some point, you need these standards to work, these frameworks, and there are some examples out there. You mentioned AdCP. There's also one now proposal out there from the IB Tech Lab.
Yep.
I think we at Google, we are super supportive of these open standards. We're an active participant also of the Open RTB. So for us, it's really about creating also or contributing to the standards. At one point, we need them. I think right now, the debate is still open. Which kind of framework is, let's say, the better one? For us, I think we are open-minded and really want to work with whatever is best for the industry. But at some point, these standards are needed to really have these holistic agent-to-agent communication, because from the examples also we've given, you see it's like within the platforms already, so that buying takes place within the Programmatic platform, or that the campaign setup happens within DV360. Next step would be at some point that there's a common language, whatever this might be, and then this can really scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so standards are the common language, and yes.
Well, just to build on that.
Yeah, sure.
I've been in the industry a very long time, and I think there've been 4 inflection points in terms of really accelerating digital advertising. The first was when we all decided we'd run the same ad sizes. Okay, now it seems really basic now, but back in the day, I worked for MSN, so I was selling a certain ad size on a certain page, and then on a different page, it was a different ad size, and AOL was doing something different, and there was only 3 portals. I mean, it was a really long time ago. And Yahoo, you didn't exist at that point. And then, not you, you probably as a person didn't exist. I'm that old. But, so that was really, and then we were like wondering, well, why is nobody buying this stuff? Well, because we're making it too difficult for people to buy stuff. So then they went off and bought, the back cover of a magazine. So when we all decided that we would run the same ad sizes, you saw the industry accelerate. Then we all adopted the same protocols, whether it was OpenRTB or pre-bid. And I think, but we all went through teething problems, right? We didn't all adopt them at the same time, and we didn't all use them in exactly the same way. And I think that that's the point where we're at now. You know, you've got AdCP, you've got IAB Tech Lab. There'll be other things. And as an industry, I think we will go through the cycle that we go through. Hopefully, we'll go through it quicker than we have done in the past. And then we'll settle on something that works best for the customer.
Yeah. And that was exactly my question I want to go to is like, I mean, we have now these kind of two standards, and perhaps, I mean, I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that, but perhaps one of you want to explain in more detail. We have the IB Tech Lab, who developed basically or launched recently standard ARTF, if I'm correct, and then initiative agenticadvertising.org. I think you're one of the founding members.
Yeah, we're a
your
founding
company.
partner of AdCP.
It's AdCP. Anyone who wants to take the question, like what is in average or from a high level perspective, the difference between these kind of two standards? Or is there a difference, or are they complementing each other?
I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough.
Me neither.
Yeah. So I know they exist. I know also that Tech Lab rebranded their framework. I think it's called AIMP, if I'm not mistaken. But really, I'm also not deep enough.
You got the wrong people up here for that.
So like
No, that's totally fine. My point's like, so I mean, I'm also not an expert in here, but we do have these kind of two different paths.
Yeah.
And the question's like, and again, you know, it's more like perhaps also, let's say, like analytical gut feeling I'm asking for here. Do you foresee that we can end up in the near future in a world where we have these kind of two different kind of standards, you know, side by side each other, and perhaps also in competition, and is that taking away a bit of the, let's say, the positive kind of development speed we have definitely in the system right now?
I think honestly, it's probably too early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an opinion one way or the other right now because, again, it's far too early to tell. I think our perspective is that we will work with both and we will...
Yep.
I hate the word agnostic, but I can't think of an... Everyone says they're agnostic. No one's agnostic. But, you know, we'll be agnostic and we'll do what's right for the customer. And if it's one protocol, I mean, it makes sense that it's one protocol, but actually, as an industry, I don't really know any industry where everybody coalesces around a single protocol. I don't think having two or three is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just too early for us to say whether that's going to hamper or accelerate. My general perspective actually is competition is a good thing, and that tends to accelerate progress.
I would absolutely agree. So I have no clue what the difference between these two is. But we see that there are other topics in the market, such as attention. Attention is a topic, it's not new. We are talking about it since years already. But still, we could discuss if there is that one standard and if it's enough or not. So it's way too early, but I would be optimistic that we all learned within the last years to handle different kinds of standard, but it doesn't mean that we do not need one. I think there will be one, I don't know when, and it will take some time, but one will be passed.
And one might work better for one instance than another instance.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about measurement, there is more than one measurement out there.
Yeah.
More than one, you know, company that looks at IQ and AQ, and I think sometimes these things will differ dependent on what the objective is and who the client is and which platform you're using.
Yeah.
I would say at one point probably we'll settle for one standard, as we have done so many times in the past. There's one, let's say, dominating standard. But I think also the question is when this will be, which standard this will be, is still open. But I think at one point it probably makes sense to agree on one when we have more participants, more adoption for one standard. But I guess this is very early as these standards are still developing.
Oh. Okay, makes sense. And I agree. I think it's like following both and looking into both, pursuing
There
both.
could be a third or a fourth. We don't know yet, right?
Yeah. Exactly. No, I think gives guidance also and makes totally sense. Perhaps circling back on a slightly different point. I mean, if AI agents, if they start to really negotiate media budgets more or less autonomously in the future, there will be a change for lots of players, particularly on the tech side. How would you foresee in this kind of new market shaping the role of yourself? I mean, talking here now more about the tech vendors, so Google and Programmatic. Do you see that your role is changing as a company in a certain way?
Yeah, I think I said at the beginning, I think we're thinking more about how do we build the environment within which this happens, as opposed to how do we control the conversation.
I guess probably we see ourselves probably, if you look at our, we're supporting both the sell and buy side, and I think both products like DB360 or Google Ad Manager will probably evolve into some kind of really intelligent ecosystem, really supporting or acting as the agent representing either the buyer or the seller. So kind of this is like the agent of our customer, but then I think also being like the environment where the transaction takes place. So there will be, I guess, a slight shift, but ultimately we still want to work with our partners. So it's not like the relationship with our partner suddenly will be cut off just because there will be agents presumably take over the negotiation. So I guess there will be more time for then strategic partnership, less time on troubleshooting. So as we said before, like hopefully more time for the really interesting topics.
Yeah. And does it lead automatically to a higher level of, let's say, democratization of the ecosystem, or do you see any kind of boundaries, new boundaries coming up?
I think it depends on whether everybody in the ecosystem is prepared to play nicely together. I certainly feel it will democratize access to the open internet. And I think it will reduce some of the friction that often the buyers will find, and even the supply partners as well. What we're seeing is a sort of a compression of the supply chain a little bit, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It removes some of the friction. People are getting closer to the supply. It makes the buying more efficient and more effective. It can reduce the fee structure if you are compressing the supply chain, which I know has always been a bit of a sore point in programmatic, where everyone thinks, well, everyone's taking a slice of the pie. If you can compress some of the supply chain, then that's going to reduce the fees potentially, and which gives more working media for publishers and greater return on ad spend for buyers. So,
I mean, actually, right now, I think also the situation is that the machine should find the best impression, the best user right now already, depending on like the desired target campaign outcome. I don't think that this will change like dramatically just because it's run by an agent. So maybe you want that this is more like really objective and without influence from a human. But still, I would say that a content provider would still want to sell like more of their inventory to a certain campaign. So I think, and maybe also an agency or an advertiser wants to spend a certain amount on in a certain environment because they think this is a good fit. So I think there will still be this kind of like influence and giving like guidance to the agents where the money should be spent. And in the same way, it's like today, you have already for some campaigns you set up programmatic direct deals because you want to make sure that a certain amount of your budget is spent on this platform. So I think just because it's run by an agent, there will still be elements of it also in the future.
Yeah. And from a buyer's perspective, do you see that it's making your life more easy?
Of course, it is. So I think it's more like what you were just talking about right now, Sebastian. I think that it might happen that one day there won't be this classical kind of briefing which says we want to have adults from 34 to 59. It might maybe just say we want to have this outcome, or maybe I even don't know as an advertising what would be a good outcome. So I would just say take the money, do whatever you can, and we will find new ways. And as I already mentioned, blind spots that we can make use of we actually didn't know in the past.
I think it's going to enable you to test and learn much more quickly. So in the past, you want to test a certain campaign. It's a week to do the brief, it's a week to do the setup, you troubleshoot for I don't know how many days, and then by then the campaign flight time is already over, you never really get the full picture. So this is going to enable actually brands and buyers to be much more nimble in terms of testing things.
And there's also a good kind of a keyword. I mean, is it, in theory, if this is making and empowering even clients more to be, being more self-responsible and being more active in this kind of space, how is that changing your role as an agency then?
we have to educate them that they have to be open towards these topics, because it's really difficult. So, of course, print still exists, and it will exist in the future as well. And we will always talk about any kind of target groups and any plans and strategies, but still, I think the first thing we have to do, or the most important thing we have to do as an agency, is to educate and to consult towards AI and to find a kind of trust to the client, and to just motivate the client that he can trust or she can trust in the technology, and that there can be a good outcome, what can be shown, for example, by test and learn.
So I think the key word that you've said there is trust, and I talk a lot about this because, Programmatic's 20 years old this year, so we've been doing this for a long time. In ad tech, that's like dog years, right? So we're like 150 or something. But we spent 20 years building trusted relationships with our partners, with our publishers, with our buyers. And so we have a legacy upon which we can go to a customer, of whether it's supply or demand, and say, if you want to try this, work with a trusted partner, work with someone who's taken 20 years to build a trusted relationship with you, who's for 20 years has built technology to enable you to achieve your goals. And so I think that, when people are thinking about, well, how do I test this? How do I put my toe into the water? I would encourage you to work with a partner that you've been working with for a long time, because they understand you, they understand your business, they understand what you're trying to achieve, and you've built that degree of trust and transparency. And that's still going to be critical. I think everyone goes, oh, AI, it's just another black box and we won't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Choose your partners wisely and you will.
Mm. So like a navigator through these kind of new ecosystem. Yeah. Also, just adding one question from the audience. Sorry. Bring up the question like how you basically make sure that you develop really independent agents, particularly, like also full stack kind of partners, or like Google working on both on the buy and the sell side. How can we make sure that we don't have, if I see that correctly, in kind of buyers already being part of the agents itself, so that they're working really autonomously? Do we need some new kind of, I don't know, auditing in these kind of technologies, or how can we leverage the learnings from the past?
Well, I think right now already there has to be some trust into the product you're using, because when you set up a campaign and you want to make sure that you are trusting that it's executing the right way, and also finding for you the best possible inventory. I think this doesn't change just because it's executed by an agent. And then there needs to be some, let's say, audibility also in the future. We look at maybe understanding how an agent or the system, like the reasoning behind it. And I think there are already like thinking summaries available that shows you like the thinking of the model and how it came to a certain decision. And this is already like in place. You can look it up, and also maybe you ask the agent to explain the thinking, so that you can also really understand in the response how they came to a certain conclusion. So I think there are already mechanisms in place that it's like not a black box, but really also understandable for the people behind it.
Mm. That makes totally sense. And it's also, another question coming up here related to this is do we have a new way where we have to think about like accountability? So, if an agent is making a wrong decision, is there a certain additional layer of accountability in the system? Is the agent accountable, the company who developed the agent?
Our perspective at the moment is if it's a buyer's agent, the agent is acting on behalf of the buyer, and therefore that's where the responsibility sits. But that said, we will build in guardrails so that there can be as much or little human interaction as the buyer and or the publisher requires.
Yes, and of course you also have to take care, but this could be another panel, you have to take care of ethics, you have to take care of corporate social responsibility, that all counts in. But I think this is something, of course, in the end, the owner is responsible. But this is why you, of course, have to take care if you use an open system, if you use your own system, or what you're going to do.
talking about accountability. I'm accountable for keeping an eye on time, and I'm not super good at this as I see that right now.
Stop blinking.
Yeah.
Yes. One last question, and please try to keep it to one word. What is the one thing, particularly brand executives, should take out from this kind of panel discussion we had? What should they do tomorrow on this topic? Who wants to go first? One word. Look at the time.
Start.
Start, yeah.
Well, I was going to say start, but I'm going to say call Programmatic.
Fair enough.
Maybe more pragmatic to say, we say the AI is only as good as the data you put into it, so make sure that your data foundation is right so you can get the best out of it.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to us, and start tomorrow.